Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to language lesson 143. We are going to begin with our oral language exercises. I am going to say the sentence and you're simply going to repeat after me. Each girl sat in her own seat. No one would give up on his job. Will each of you please take his seat? No one seems to worry about his future. Everyone is to sing his very best. Someone please lend me his pencil. No one did his homework. Every girl took her place in line. Which of the girls completed her work? The class admitted its mistake. Very good. So let's move into our preposition song together. Sing along with me, please. Aboard, about, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, at. Those are the first set. Before, behind, below, beneath, beside, between, beyond. By, down, during, except, for, and from. In, inside, into, like, near, of, on, over, past, since, through, and throughout. To, toward, under, underneath, until, up, upon. With, within, without. Now I am finished. Boys and girls, let's go ahead and do some practice with our parts of speech. I'm going to read the sentence and I'd like for you to identify the prepositional phrases. The sun and moon rise in the east and set in the west. Have you identified the preposition? And if so, be sure that it has an object. If you said in the east, you are correct. There's also another one, which is in the west. Now, if you noticed, we covered a particular part of speech a few days ago, and there's an example of that in this sentence. It is a conjunction, and the conjunction that the sentence uses is and. It joins the sun with the moon. Very good. Let's look at some other examples. I would like for you to identify an adverb in this sentence. Stop this noise immediately. There's a clue that you should have noticed right away, immediately. It ends with an ly. It also tells when the noise should stop. Immediately. Very good. Let's look at this sentence together, and I'd like for you to identify a conjunction. God is always with me, yet I sometimes forget and don't trust him. What would the conjunction be in this sentence? The answer is yet. It combines two separate thoughts. So the first complete sentence we see is God is always with me. The second complete sentence we see is I sometimes forget and don't trust him. Now there is another conjunction that we come across, and it's a common one. We covered it in the previous sentence strip. It is and. Very good. Let's end with one last example. In this example, I would like for you to identify an interjection. Let's see if you can find it. My, that's a big dish of ice cream. Now that you've identified the interjection, I would like for you to specify whether or not it is mild or strong. The interjection is my. Our first clue is that it begins the sentence. Our next clue that it's a mild interjection is the fact that it's followed by a comma and a lowercase letter. Very good. And so we have a few sample sentences on the board. What I would like for you to do in each sentence is to identify whether or not the underlined word is a preposition or an adverb. So if you would like, you can take out a piece of scrap paper and just jot them down, or you could say it orally, but I'm going to just go one by one, and you are going to say whether or not it's an adverb or a preposition and why. So let's look at number 1 together. Climb aboard, called the conductor. Is aboard in this sentence a preposition or an adverb? If you said adverb, you are correct. It would be modifying the verb climb, so it tells where. Number 2, the dogs ran down the street. If you said a preposition for that sentence, you would be right. You notice the phrase down the street, so once there's an object, you know that the underlined word would serve as a preposition. Let's look at number 3. The old barn fell down completely. Again, there's no object, so it would not be a preposition. In this case, down would serve as an adverb. Number 4, Sarah may come over tomorrow. Very good. This would be an adverb. And again, for the same reason, there is no object in that sentence that it would be modifying. So, yesterday we learned about this interesting resource that we have access to called the dictionary. When we come across a word that we are struggling with as to what it means and how it's used in context. And we also discussed a number of things that we're able to locate in the dictionary. Not only the entry word itself that we would like to look up, but we can also identify the pronunciation of that word, the syllabication of that word, the meaning of the word, amongst many other things, including the spelling, etc. Now, today we are going to focus on how the dictionary itself is organized. So here we have some examples of random names from the Bible, and I would like for us together to put them in alphabetical order, because that is how the dictionary is organized. If you're trying to locate a term and you have no idea, I should say, where to find it, the beauty is, it's arranged in alphabetical order. But what do you do in the case when you have the beginning letter, but so many other words begin with the same letter as well? So let's go ahead and go through this example. We have the names Joseph, Abigail, Joshua, David, Jude, Jacob, Zion, and Caleb. Now, think to yourself, what would be the most obvious one to come first? We know that the alphabet begins with the letter A, so that would be the first one. But you can also, by process of elimination, think to yourself, wow, the alphabet ends with a Z, so we know this would be the last one. Let's see what would come next in the alphabet. If you said Caleb, that would be correct. So that would be our second one, right? We have the A and then we have a C, all right? Now, what would come next after Abigail, Caleb? It would be David. That would be our third one. But now you should have noticed, gets a little tricky after this, because we have not only 1, 2, or 3 names that start with the letter J, but 4. All right? So what would we do in this particular case? We would eliminate the very first letter. And we would then direct our attention to the second letter in the name. But look at there. We have two names that with the second letter being the same, which is an O. Let's look at the others. Oh, here we have an A. That's a giveaway. And a U. We know that A comes before U, so Jacob would be the fourth one. And does an O come before a U? Of course. So we know that either Joseph or Joshua is next. But again, we come across another issue. They both have an S immediately following. So they have the same second and third letters. Let's go ahead and cross those off and look at the fourth letter in this case, which would be an E and an H. And yes, we know that an E comes before an H, so that would be the fifth one. This would be the sixth one, and obviously this would be the seventh, being that that's our next J. And we knew from the beginning that Z would be the end because it's the last letter of the alphabet, which is our eighth one. And this is what you are going to be coming across sometimes when you're looking up particular words, especially as you're practicing on the worksheet. Okay, so now we are on workbook page 219, and you will notice at the very top that it mentions the same thing that we just went over, that words in the dictionary are arranged in alphabetical order, obviously A, B, C, D, and then it continues. So the example that they gave is cot would come after cat, because though they both begin with a C, we know the second letter is an O in cot and the second letter in cat is A. All right? Now, this is just a helpful suggestion as far as dividing the Bible into thirds. So you would have A through E as the first third, and then you'd have F through P, and finally Q through Z. That would just help you in your mind decipher where your unknown word would be located if you divide it into those particular sections. And there are examples that follow. So let's go ahead and do a couple of examples together from Think A. The directions say to think of which part of the dictionary would have the names of the following animals. Show where each name could be found by writing A through E, F through P, or O through Z. All right, so let's go ahead and do number 6 together, for instance. Number 6 says duckling. Which part of the dictionary would you find that? Would it come in between A through E, F through P, or O through Z? Very good. If you said A through E, you're correct, and you'd simply write that on the line. Okay. That seemed pretty straightforward. You're going to complete that section on your own, and we're going to move on to page 220. So now we are going to move on to page 220. We're going to go through the instructions together for each section and do 1 or 2 examples, and then you'll be on your own to finish it for seat work, and I will review the homework tonight. So for Think B, it says, look at the first letters of the following words and number them in the order in which you would find them in a dictionary. So basically, you're going to look at the list of words provided, and you're going to identify which one is first, second, third, etc. In this particular case, obviously, this first letter is an A. We know our alphabet. That would be number 1. You'd look to see if there are any B's. We located that in the first list. That will be number 2, and you would continue along that trend. For the next section, we have a secret message here. and they're asking you to basically put this in alphabetical order in order to figure out what that message is. So you're going to be working on that on your own. And finally, for Think D, actually next, not finally, but for Think D, on a notebook paper, you're going to write the following list of words in alphabetical order, and you'll have to look at the second letter for some of these words. So we know that all of these words in number 1 obviously start with a D. So we would be focusing on the second letter. We have an O, A, E, R, and U, and obviously dark would be number 1 in this case, and then you would move on. Dust would be number 2, etc. So for Think E, they're asking you to look at the third letter of the following words and to number them in alphabetical order. Now, obviously, they all start with SP, as you can see. So we're going to look at the next letter, which would be the third one, as the instructions specify. And we notice that this begins with an A, so that would be number 1. And this begins with an E, so that would be number 2. Okay, and you're going to complete that as well. So for homework tonight, you are going to complete Think F and G on page 221. Do well. Bye-bye.